of the admin area, and I usually change the idle timeout to 480 because it's a test lab and I don't like my session locking me out, so apply that. And once that's done, if we go to status, we can have a look at the licensing information. So to ensure you have full access to Fortinet support and FortiGuard services, you will need to register the FortiGate unit. I have no license on this FortiGate virtual image. So it's showing the support contract. The unreachable may be due to the routing information, so we'll have a look at the routing later in the video. If I log into my licensed one, and we can see the licensing information here. So the two important ones are the support contracts, and you can see the green tick here, and my email address information is here. The FortiGuard service, so I've got IPS, application control and antivirus licensed, and you can see the expiry dates here as well. So make sure your FortiGate is licensed to your to the contract you've purchased with them. Next thing we'll have a look at is features. So if we go back to the evaluation one, and we've got features down here as a widget, so you can turn them on and off from here, or if you go into config features, you've got them here as well. So you've got some basic features, you've got the security features, and if you go down here you've got a show more tab, and it shows you the rest of the features. So you need to evaluate which features you want to turn on or off from here. And disabling features also removes all related configuration options from the web-based manager, so to keep that in mind. So what we can do is, if we have a look at the security features, you've got a preset option here, and if you go for next gen firewall, for example, it will show you, it will automatically enable disable features for you. So it shows you the changes here, so it's removed antivirus, endpoint control and web filter. But of course if you go for the opposite, which is full UTM, everything's enabled here, and then you can apply changes from here as well. The next bit I want to show you is the operating mode of the appliance. So if we go back in status, leave page, and the operating mode is here. So if we go to change, and if we drop this box down, there's two modes here. So NAT mode is the most commonly used mode in probably over 95% of deployments out there. In the NAT functionality, it's basically a layer 3 device, and you can put an IP address on all interfaces which are routable. So you'd usually leave this on by default. NAT is the most common one. You've also got transparent mode, and in this mode the FortiGate unit becomes a layer 2 IP folding bridge. This means that Ethernet frames are forwarded based on the destination MAC address, and so no other routing is performed. So all incoming traffic that is accepted by the firewall is broadcasted out on all interfaces, which is similar to a switch, however a little different to a switch as well, because a switch builds a port table and associates MAC addresses to them. And transparent mode, you will usually deploy it between your network and gateway router or primary firewall, and it's usually used when you need the FortiGate to provide additional security protection without having to change IP addresses on the network. It's good for services such as antivirus, web filtering, spam filtering and intrusion protection. The next thing we'll look at is if we go to status, and we've got the host name here, so we can change the host name from here. So I'll call mine test firewall. Okay, so we changed the host name on there, and also DNS. So the FortiGate unit's DNS settings are set to use the FortiGuard DNS servers by default, which is sufficient for most networks. However, you may want to change this, let's say, to your internal DNS system or a public service or your ISP DNS IP addresses. So we can do this if we go to network DNS here, and then you can specify your DNS addresses here. So I'll just use the public Google ones here and apply that. Default route, so we'll have a look at the routing next. So it's not got a route at the moment, if we go to router and then static routes, there's nothing in here. If we go back to system status area and we go to the CLI again, I don't think I should be able to ping the outside world because there's no routing information. So let me try ping Google. Yep, so that doesn't work. And if we go back into router, static routes, and we can create a new static route from here. So we're going to create a default route, so it should be all zeros, which represents the default route, so to anything. And then we need to configure the port this address can be reached through, so mine's port 1. I need to provide my gateway, which will be 10.10.20.1, and I don't need to do anything with the administrative distance. It's used when there are multiple paths to the same destination, which you can configure the distance, and the smaller the distance the better the route. So when there's multiple paths, you can use this as a way to do route preference, or even equal cost path if they're both equivalent distances. But if I click OK here, that has provided this route here. So if we go back into system status, do a ping again, and now it's pinging to the outside world, so I've got reachability. Next we'll look at the firmware version. So if we scroll up here, go back into status, and again system information, we've got firmware version here. Before you install any new firmware, you should always review the release notes for the new firmware release, and you should review the supported upgrade paths document to make sure the upgrade from your current image to your new image is supported, and you should back up the current configuration as well, which is very important, and any local certificates as well. So backup is done from here. If we click backup, you've got the option to back up to the local PC or a USB stick, and you can encrypt it as well for extra security from here. If we cancel this, once you've backed up, you can do the firmware update by clicking update here. That's a good link, so you can view the release notes, and then you can upload the firmware from here. So if you click that, you could specify the file. It should you should have a local file on your machine, and you can click that and select the file from here. You usually have recommended firmware versions and all available ones. I've got nothing because there's no reachability, there's no license, but if we log into my licensed one just to see what the status is on this one, if we go to update, again there's no recommended ones because it's on the latest version, but available ones we see a few here. And the last area we'll look at of the FortiGate initial setup is the time and date settings. So if we go back to status, and we've got the system time. I don't think you can change it on this because it's not licensed. If we go back into my licensed one, if we go to status, we've got the change option in here. So for effective scheduling logging, the FortiGate system date and time should be accurate, and you can either manually set the date and time or configure this with an NTP server. So we've got the time zone here. We can configure the time zone at least to be London, where I'm from. Okay, so it's changed my time zone. You can synchronize with an NTP server. I'm using the FortiGuard NTP servers here, or you can specify one from here, from this checkbox here, and then specify the server here. You've got to enable NTP from here, this checkbox, and click OK once you're done. And that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Hi guys, welcome to my firewall policy rule demo on a FortiGate firewall. So the version of the FortiGate we're using is the FortiGate VM, which is the FortiGate Virtual Edition. And I really like the FortiGate firewall policy rules because it's like a central hub of the firewall where all the features and functionality come together, which we will have a look at very shortly. So if we go to policy and objects, IPv4 is selected. Here's where all the firewall policy rules are created or can be viewed from. On the top right, we've got two options, view options. One is the global view, which shows all of the policies in order of their sequence. Left hand side you can see the sequence 1, 2 and 3. We've also got the section view as well here, so if we click on this, this is the view I tend to use, which is similar to the global view, except that as the name implies, it is divided into sections. By default, the sections are based on the paths between the interfaces. So these can be referenced as known as interface pairings. So for example, all of the policies referencing traffic from the WAN to the DMZ will be in one section, and all the policies referencing traffic from the DMZ to the WAN will be in another section, as you can see on the left hand side here. So WAN to DMZ, they're all in this section, so all the policy rules will be in here. And then DMZ to WAN will all the firewall policy rules will be in here. You've also got at the bottom an implicit deny, which denies all other connections. Also, what we can do in these firewall policy rules, if we right click one from here, we've got some more options we can choose from. For example, you can edit the policy, you can delete the policy, insert a new policy above it, insert a policy below it. You can show matching logs for this policy. You can enable or disable this policy, cut and copy the policy, and if you cut or copy the policy, then you can paste before or after another policy. And at the very bottom we've got the insert section. With the insert section, it is possible to add customized subsections within the default section of the interface pairings. So this will be useful in a situation where you have lots of policies and you'd like to further compartmentalize them by common attributes, so that things are easy to find. So if we click on insert section and we specify something like DMZ to WAN web servers, so you may, for all your web server rules, you may have a subsection and put all the firewall policy rules within this section here.